So I was up at Papworth Hospital, and I was there studying to be a surgeon, surrounded by these wonderful cardiothoracic surgeons some of the best surgeons in the world. And I remember there was one day I was in clinic with one of the professors. And into the clinic walked a gentleman, we call him Mr. Smith. He was 78 years old. He had had a cardiac bypass 2 years ago. And now he'd come back because his arteries had clogged up again and he needed a redo. Now, the professor said to him, well, look, you are actually too unwell to have another operation. So the gentleman said, well, then, what do I do? And the professor said, actually, there's nothing you can do. So we let that gentleman go out of the room and we let him go home to die, basically. And at that point, I thought to myself, surely there is something else we can do. Surely with all this knowledge and experiments, there is more that we can do for an individual who cannot have surgery. And by the way, just for those of you who don't know much about heart surgery or coronary disease is just where the artery starts to fur up with atherosclerosis, which is just cholesterol and fat. And so not enough blood can reach the heart, and you get things like chest pain, or you can have a heart attack. And some people say those are some of the first signs you ever get of heart disease. I would like to give you a different definition, however. This gentleman tends to help us out. I think if you have a lifestyle like Homer Simpson, inactive, poor diet, stressed all the time, overweight, smoking and drinking, even if you don't feel it, you probably have the first signs of heart disease already. So I spent a lot of my time looking around, and I found some wonderful doctors around the world who thought like me. And one doctor was this guy, Dr. Esselstyn, and he did a wonderful, elegant experiment. He was also a surgeon by trade, but he had changed his profession. And this is what he did. He took 18 of his patients. It's a small experiment. He took 18 of his patients. All of them had severe heart disease. All of them had massively high cholesterol. We didn't do any genetic makeup testing of them. We knew they had he knew they had very bad heart disease. Now, of those 18 patients, collectively, for the 8 years before the experiment, they had had 49 cardiac events. Now, that just means they've had chest pain, they could have had a heart attack, they could have had a bypass. Collectively, they had 49 cardiac events before the experiment. And what did he do? All he did was change their diet. He gave them a whole grain, plant-based diet. No saturated fat from meat or dairy. That's all he did. So instead of operating on them, he just changed the diet. See what happened. Well, within months, their cholesterol levels halved, which is wonderful. Something very interesting. During the 11 years of follow-up, those people that were part of the experiment had no cardiac events. No more chest pain, no heart attacks, no angina, simply by changing the diet. Interesting also, more than 70% showed a dramatic reversal of disease. Several of them consented to having an angiogram several years later, and this is one of them. I think everyone can see that. So the one on the right, you can see the critical narrowing before the experiment started. Those sort of patients would typically have chest pain, would typically be presenting to a doctor for a bypass. The after is the same person, 2 years down the line, but you can see that the artery has opened up completely. This is without surgery. This is even without medication. Now, since that experiment all those years ago, loads of experiments have come out, and it has been proved that simply by changing your lifestyle, you can reverse disease. And reverse not just heart disease, by the way, hypertension, diabetes, even some early stage cancers. There's lots of work done on prostate cancer. So simply by having this lot, a whole plant-based diet, whole grains, plant-based, avoiding all the saturated fats, you can actually reverse a serious disease. I'm sure if I asked any of you, would you like to have your chest open and have a surgeon rummage around and change your arteries, most of us would not want that. If you had the option to have just a change of lifestyle, no matter how hard it may be, you know, some of us are addicted to chicken wings or whatever, but you know, it may be difficult at first, but it is worth it, certainly, in the end. And by the way, evidence tells us that some of the poorest parts of the world do not get the diseases that we get. They don't get heart disease, diabetes quite so much. But then it's probably because they don't quite have so much fast food. Now, I go to Africa quite often, but I'm finding every time I go there are more and more fast food outlets. I'm not sure I'd want to see that on safari. But you know, it has a serious cost also. I mean, there is the cost to health. I mean, there are 2.5 million people in this country who have heart disease. 500,000 of us will have a heart attack, and over 150,000 will die of a heart attack in this country alone. And it costs about £30 billion per year. That is nearly a third of the NHS budget. And that's just dealing with heart disease. If we talk about diabetes, we're spending around about £1 million an hour in this country. If these things can be reversed, this is something we really want to get into. Okay. Now, I love what Thomas Edison said. He said, the doctor of the future will give no medicine, but will interest his patients in the care of the human frame, in a proper diet, and in the cause and prevention of disease. I believe the doctor of the future should be the doctor of the present. If we really want to change the nation's health, we need to start looking at ways that we can reverse and prevent disease. I love this quote. If you want to turn illness into wellness, you have to turn the I into we. Together, we can improve our health. And if we can improve our health, we can improve the health of the community. If we can improve the health of the community, we can improve the health of the nation. If we can improve the health of the nation, we can improve the health of the world. Thank you very much.